Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brooklyn if you're new here, and today I'm finally filming my breastfeeding tips video. I'm going to cover my routine and answer a few of your questions that you guys left for me and tell you how I was able to build a stash of about 80 to 85 bags of milk in just 9 weeks for my little one. I do go back to work in just under 3, so I've been building my stash since I came home from the hospital, and it's been super easy. I have not put in any extra work at all for it. So I'm going to tell you how I've gone about doing that, and I am baby wearing Emmett. He was in his rock and play, but he wasn't having it, so I'm just gonna wear him, get through this video so I can get it up for you guys, and hopefully we can get it done and up for you guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and start and show you guys what I use. So I do have an electric breast pump, and it is the Spectra S2. However, I do not use this. I've only used it a handful of times, and I realized that using my Haaka was so much easier. So I do have an electric pump, but like I said, I've only used it a few times, and the times that I did use it, it was only to relieve engorgement. So I would only put it on each breast for like 3 minutes max. I've never done longer than like 5 minutes on each side with the electric pump. So I don't really use that in my routine. What I do use are my Haakas, and I have been using these since I came home from the hospital, and I truly believe that these have helped my supply stay up and to give me the little excess that I need to store some away for when I go back to work. So if you are still pregnant, I highly recommend you go down to the information box, click the link, order some Haakas, and have them ready to go for when your little one comes home, because this is how I have built 99% of my stash is through my Haakas, and I would honestly say less than 1% is with the pump. It's probably like 99.9% with the Haakas. So my routine is, ever since I came home from the hospital, I feed Emmett on one side, on one breast. So he gets one, and then on the other one I will use a Haaka. So all you do is you just squeeze it, attach it, and it will start to fill up. You do have to like re-squeeze and attach it every so often. It'll start to lose like suction. You just need to reattach it. And in the beginning I was getting between 1 ounce to 2 ounces, and then now I can get anywhere from 3 to 5 ounces depending on how long it's been since he's eaten. So I do have 2 different Haakas. This is the first one that I bought, and this one is it's just like the basic one. I think it's like $13. They're super inexpensive. So I was using this, and then I just recently bought the I think it's bigger. It seems bigger to me, but it has the suction on the bottom, and then it has like a stopper, and you can use the stopper in this one as well. But this is really nice because it will suction to the table and it won't spill, because I've spilt a lot of milk. So I swear by these. Here recently, Emmett's started sleeping longer throughout the night, so I will get up in the middle of the night and I will just attach both of these to both breasts, and I will relieve them, and in 10 minutes I will have 6 ounces combined. And that's not emptying fully, that's just relieving so that I can go back to sleep. So these are so much faster than the electric pump from what I've noticed, because the electric pump, if you've used one before, then you know it's kind of like psh, 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 like it squeezes. And you know, with these you can get a constant flow of milk, so it's so much faster to just attach it, and it's a constant stream. It comes out so much faster, and I feel like you can get a lot more milk out of these than you do with that. So what's really nice about it is, like I said, I feed him on one side, I attach it to the other, and by the time we're done feeding, he's fed, and I have an extra couple ounces to throw in the freezer. So then by the time his next feeding comes around, he goes on to the opposite breast, and same thing, I use the Haaka. I do not use this all the time. I pretty much just go off of how I think my supply is for the day. If I feel like I have like extra engorgement and my boobs feel really big, then I definitely use the Haaka. But if I feel like I'm having kind of a day where my supply is a little bit lower, then I don't use it. And sometimes if I'm just out, I don't use it. I don't use it all the time, I will clarify that. I just use it here and there. Some days I'll use it every feed, some days I'll use it one feed, sometimes I won't use it at all. But this is the main way I have built my supply. Now, a lot of people are concerned with the Haaka that you won't be getting the foremilk and the hind milk, which you need both to satisfy your baby. The foremilk is like the watery milk that comes out before, and then the hind milk is the thick, creamy milk that contains more of the fat and fills your baby up. So with these, I have super fatty milk, and I definitely make sure that I'm getting both, and I do. So I have one in the refrigerator that's been sitting since last night, and I want to show you guys the separation of the foremilk and the hind milk so you can see what I'm talking about if you're not sure, because I know that whenever I was starting all this out, I had no idea what any of this was. But like I said, I definitely researched everything, and this is one thing that I did learn. So I'm gonna pull that bottle out and show you guys the difference between the two. Okay, so as you can see, this down here is the foremilk. It's kind of like more watery and see-through, and then this is the hind milk, and then there is a layer of fat at the top of that as well. So this is what I relieved out of one breast last night before Emmett woke up, and it's about 3.5 ounces. So this is just from the Haaka, and it was in 8 minutes that I was able to get this. So foremilk, hind milk, and then a layer of fat at the top. Another pump that I purchased is the Medela Harmony. It's a manual pump, and both my Medela bottles are in the refrigerator right now. But the Medela bottle attaches to this, and then you just manually express your milk. I bought this thinking that it might be faster than the electric pump, but once again, my Haakas, I just love them so much more, and this is just takes more time. So I highly prefer the Haakas over any other pump that I have. Okay, as far as storing my milk, I will take the milk out of the Haaka and put it into one of my storage bottles. So I use the 2 Spectra bottles that came with my pump, and then I also use the 2 Medela bottles that came with the Harmony pump, and then I also use some Dr. Brown's bottles just because they're bigger, and sometimes I get more than 5 ounces and I need to put it in a bottle that has enough space. So I will pour it into a bottle, and then I will put it directly into the refrigerator, and your milk is good in the fridge for up to 5 days. So I never leave my milk in the fridge longer than like 2, and I usually almost always it's only 1 day. So I will do that every single time, and I will put them into separate bottles, and then whenever I go to put them in bags, I will mix them together to get the amount that I need. It is perfectly safe to mix your milk together from different sessions as long as they are at the same temperature. So they both need to be cooled down in the refrigerator, and once they're both cool and chilled and been in the fridge for a while, then it's perfectly safe to mix them. So that's what I do, and then I combine them to make 5-ounce bags. I started out making it 3-ounce bags because I just really wasn't sure how much I needed to put in a bag to store away. So I started with 3, so I have some that are 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, and now I have 5. And 5 ounces are what I've been doing for probably the past month. So that's what I do with those. I also want to mention that I use the app Baby Feed Timer to keep track of his feeding schedule, and I love this app. I don't know that you're going to be able to see it from here, but basically you just click if you're using the left or the right breast, and then it times it, and it tells you how long it's been since his last feed, and then it gives you like a log of all of his feeds. So he usually during the day he will eat every 2 to 3 hours, and then at night he will, when we first put him down between 7 and 9, he will go anywhere from a 5-hour to an 8-hour stretch, and then he'll wake up and he'll eat, and then he'll go back down for about 3 to 3.5 hours and wake up. So that's his feeding schedule right now, and he's 9 weeks old. So I love that app to keep track of what breast I'm on, and how long it's been. I will definitely film a video of my breastfeeding must-haves if you guys want to see that. This is pretty much just my routine. So if you guys want to see that, then like this video and comment down below and let me know, and I will do that for you, because I have a lot of really great products that I love that aren't necessarily mentioned in this video. So I'm going to go ahead and move into your questions, because that might give you more of an insight of what I do. So I'm going to pull it up here. Okay, someone said, how do you manage both nursing and pumping? So like I mentioned, I nurse and I pump at the same time with my Haaka. Someone says, best tips for beginners. The biggest tip I can give you is to get a Haaka. How do you store your stash? I have so much extra that is taking over the freezer and it's a disaster. I also left the freezer open one night, spare one in the garage, and lost over 100 ounces. I suggest anyone else doing that get a child lock to prevent that from happening. Oh my God, I would cry. I cry when I spill just 2 ounces, so I can't imagine losing an entire stash. Right now I have all of my bags in the freezer here in the kitchen, but I'm getting ready to organize them and move them out to the deep freeze. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put about a week's worth from the dates into big freezer Ziploc bags and store them in the freezer that way. That way I know the order that they're in. And then once he starts going over to the babysitters, I'm going to be pulling out his milk the night before, putting it in the refrigerator, letting it thaw, and then taking the milk to her. So I should be keeping a pretty close eye on my deep freeze to make sure that that doesn't happen. That's like an actual fear that I've told my husband, is that what if the freezer goes out? That I would cry. I would literally cry. Someone said, my baby is 8 weeks old. I never started a stash. I regret it. Yours is amazing. Thank you so much. Like I said, I highly recommend, if you are pregnant right now, to go ahead and get the Haaka, because that is the easiest way, that worked for me anyways, to build up a supply and to get that extra without putting in the extra work. Someone said, what is your water intake? Do you drink anything special to increase your milk production? I do not. I drink probably 6 to 7 water bottles a day. And drinking water definitely helps my supply. I can tell when I've had a ton of water that I just have a bigger supply. So drink your water, people. It really does help your milk supply. Someone said, what does your schedule look like as far as feeding Emmett and pumping throughout the day? I kind of already mentioned his feeding schedule, and then I don't do extra pumping. I just use the Haaka. Someone said, are you building your stash primarily using the Haaka or another pump? Also, I would love to know if you like your new Haaka better than the old one. I have the old one too. Yes, so I do it primarily with the Haaka, and I do like my new Haaka. However, I still like my old one too. So the suction is better, but if you are using it and you get like milk around the ring, I've noticed that the suction can kind of suck. So I will go in and clean that off with like something sterile and clean. I would just wipe off the edges and my breast, so that it's not wet anymore, so that the suction can go back to like when it's fresh and you start using it. So I do like the new one, but I still use my old one too. So I think it's just preference if you want the suction so you don't lose all your milk, because that has been nice. Someone asked what the first latch felt like. All advice and tips for beginners. I honestly don't remember what the first latch felt like, because he was a C-section baby and we were in PACU recovery whenever he latched on for the first time, and I don't think I had any feeling. However, I will say that it does not feel good. Your nipples will go through like a phase, and you just need to let them toughen up basically, because it hurts. And also, I'll go ahead and mention this. So my hospital that I delivered at had 24-hour lactation, so they were coming in 2 times a day to check on you to make sure everything was okay, checking on baby, latch, everything. And I had no issues whatsoever in the hospital. He was doing amazing. I think the lactation nurse told me that he was like the only baby on the unit that was actually like nursing properly and doing well without any issues. So he was doing really, really good. When lactation came to discharge us, we sat down and talked about everything, and I showed her one of my breasts because they were extremely sore, and lactation had told me, you know, like they're just gonna have to toughen up and it's gonna hurt, but his latch looks good. So at discharge, I was showing her one of my nipples, and it was a different lady. As soon as she saw it, she said, okay, you have severe bruising. And she said, maybe changing your hold will help with that. So he was coming off of my nipple, and there was like a slight slant in it, which showed that he wasn't necessarily having the best latch. However, he was still latched really good. So I was just doing the cradle hold, and she had me do the football hold, and he came off and my nipple was round, which that tells you that you have a really good latch, and it can help prevent like the bruising and cracking and everything like that. So that helped so much. I came home and I did the football hold for probably 5 weeks with him, and every time I did the cradle hold, I would notice that I would start to get the bruising again. And he felt like a snapping turtle latching on. I think I might have mentioned that, but he had like such a powerful latch. And then in my newborn nighttime routine, someone commented and mentioned that he was doing a clicking, which could be an indication of a tongue or lip tie. And I knew about these before I had him. However, I didn't even look for them because he was doing so well nursing. And I thought the clicking was because I have a really, really fast letdown, and he was just getting a mouthful of milk, and that was him like swallowing it. But whenever someone mentioned that, I did check him. I knew he didn't have a tongue tie because he would stick that out and it would go out really far. And he didn't have a tongue tie. However, he did have a lip tie. So we took him to the pediatrician, and she recommended us to take him somewhere to get that revised. And we did that when he was about 5 weeks old. And after that, his latch, I can do cradle hold now. So I don't even have to do the football hold. I do the cradle hold, and I don't have any more bruising, and his latch is not as like snappy as it was. So I will say it does hurt, and you do go through a phase where they just have to toughen up. I do recommend using a nipple cream while you're in the hospital and when you first start out, just to keep them moisturized and try and help with some of the dryness and uncomfortableness that comes along with breastfeeding. And make sure you check your baby for a lip and tongue tie too, because that will also help. But yeah, all of those things, and then start from the beginning, building a stash if you need to. How long before you started pumping, and where did you go to educate yourself? Books, classes. I'm delivering in January and I feel overwhelmed. So like I said, as soon as I came home from the hospital, I started using the Haaka, and I had the lactation that educated me in the hospital. They also gave me a book that I brought home that I read while I would be nursing him to learn different things. And then I watched a lot of YouTube videos from moms and tried to kind of get a little bit of information before I went in to have him, so I would know different things. But I would say definitely educate yourself as much as you can. If you have a class that your hospital offers, then I recommend you take it. I tried to, but by the time that I went to sign up, there was no more classes before he was born, and I was about 30 weeks at that point, so I couldn't do a class. But luckily we had that lactation service at my hospital that was really nice. Someone said, how do you handle outings with Emmett and nursing in public on the go? Outings are really, really hard with a newborn, especially when you're breastfeeding. But I usually feed him right before we go, and then if I need to feed him while we're out, I'll usually do it in between places. In the car is where I usually feed him. But I try to time it up with his schedule so that I don't have to worry about feeding him when he's out. How do you use your Haaka? My little man is about 7 weeks old and he's so squirmy during the feedings. Trying to keep him on one boob and the Haaka on the other is a serious struggle. It so is. He's starting to move so much more. But what I do is I cradle hold and then I put it on the other boob and I will take like a burp cloth or something, because I usually have that like under his mouth so that it catches when he like spits out milk. I will take the end of that burp cloth and kind of stuff it underneath the Haaka so that the Haaka has some support in case it like loses suction and falls off. But yeah, I don't really have any tips for that. I have the same problem, especially now that he's moving more. So someone said, hi, I'm a first time mom as well. I haven't started pumping, but I'd like to know how to and when you need to pump. Also how to know when to breastfeed and when to use pumped milk. So I personally have not used any of my milk that I have put in the freezer. Usually if I'm going to be giving him a bottle, which has only been about a handful of times, he's only gotten a bottle maybe 5 times, and we use the Comatoma bottles because they're most like the breast. But what I do if I know he's gonna need a bottle is I will just take my express milk from the Haaka, put it directly into his bottle, and I will leave it out because they can be out at room temperature for I think it's like 6 to 8 hours. Don't quote me on that. It's on my paper in there that I look at, but usually if I have it out, then he's just gonna need it for the next feeding, which is about 3 hours. So I don't use any of my stored milk in the freezer, but if I know that he's gonna need a bottle and I'm not gonna be available, or if we're currently trying to work on him taking the bottle, because right now he only wants me to feed him because I am his food source. So he will cry whenever David tries to give him a bottle, and we'll have to put like one of my shirts or something on David with my smell to get him to take the bottle. That is getting a lot better, but we're working on it because, like I said, he's going to be going to the sitter in just under 3 weeks. So we've got to get him taking the bottle without any issues. So I always breastfeed unless I know I'm going to be gone. If I go get my hair done or if I go get my nails done and David is here with him, I always have a bottle for him. So I will pump before I go and leave that bottle for him. And then, how do you know when to breastfeed? Your baby will be on a schedule. You'll do on-demand feedings for him or her. Basically, you just look for the hunger cues, and if they're hungry, you feed them, and you know, that's basically, yeah, he's getting a little hungry. That's how you know how to feed them. And then if you are engorged, you can pump. Basically, you just have to listen to your body to know when you need to release your excess. If you're trying to build a stash though, I know that people have mentioned pumping, power pumping every 2 hours, pumping after you feed your baby. If you're trying to get your supply up, this can help with that too. I don't have that problem, so I pretty much just use the Haaka. Someone left a comment and said, my husband works night shifts. It's awesome to see some of the routines similar to mine. I've seen that you use the Haaka, wondering if that's all you use. Yes, it is. How often you use it with every feeding that I feel like I need to. How much do you get every time? Between 2 to 5 ounces. And how do you combine from different feedings? I did mention that earlier, that I put it in the refrigerator and then combined later. How much water you drink, and if there's anything else you do to keep up a good milk supply. So like I said, I drink probably 6 to 7 bottles of water, and then my secret to having a really good milk supply and keeping it and losing the baby weight is a party size pack of double stuffed Oreos in 3 days. No, but really, I eat a lot of Oreos. I have a very high carb diet. I have not been dieting at all, and I've lost all of my baby weight plus an additional like 5 to 6 pounds. I don't eat fruits or vegetables. I pretty much just eat carbs. So that might not work for everyone, but that's my diet. I haven't changed anything, honestly, and I eat a lot of Oreos. Okay, how Hope this question also makes sense, but what do you eat as breastfeeding mom? Do you avoid any foods? So this kind of goes into the last question. However, lactation did tell me that there's not really a lot of foods that you can't eat, that they've debunked like all of the myths about not being able to eat certain foods. I have noticed that I can't have cinnamon, or he is extremely gassy and just doesn't feel good after I have it. So I've been avoiding cinnamon. And then you also can't have like the raw fish and stuff like that. Lactation did say no raw fish. But other than that, I don't really avoid a lot, and I do have a super high carb diet. All I eat is meat and potatoes, so, and Oreos. So that's basically my diet. How do you keep up with the routine of pumping and breastfeeding? I feel like having to wash everything after each session is such a long process and chore. Also, how do you get Emmett to take the bottle? So true. That's why I love the Haaka. One thing to wash and you're good to go. And then I mentioned how I get him to take the bottle. I have to have David put something of mine on. Here recently, he'll give Emmett the bottle before he starts fussing, and that's helped a lot. But we're still working on that one, so I recommend you introducing the bottle as early as you can, maybe once a day, if you are going to have to be leaving your baby and they're going to need to be taking a bottle. He does do really good switching between the two, so he takes a bottle fine once he gets going on it, and then nursing, he still does great in nursing. Did you have any nipple soreness sensitivity? If so, how long did it last? My daughter is 1 month and I'm still experiencing soreness. Yes, girl, you're gonna be experiencing soreness. Mine probably didn't go away until he was 2 to 3 weeks old maybe. And then he had the lip tie, and then at 5 weeks after we got that fixed, I pretty much don't have any nipple soreness now at all. But you will have that in the beginning. I mean, it hurt for the water to run over my nipples in the shower. I like would cringe at the thought of having to dry them off with a towel. So that definitely happens. I do have a couple of products that I use to help with that, and if you guys want to see that video of my breastfeeding must-haves, then let me know. But I kind of already touched on that, nipple soreness and sensitivity. Someone said, do you feel like you're ever going to throw up after you breastfeed? Because I do. I do not have that problem. The only thing is, here recently I've noticed that whenever he latches on and starts feeding, I get extremely thirsty. Like I just want ice cold water. So I always try to have that next to me while I'm feeding him. Someone said, how soon after birth did you start pumping and start a stash for your baby? Do you ever find your baby to have troubles going from nursing to bottles, or has it turned into a routine? Love your videos, by the way. You're an awesome mom. Thank you so much. So I did already cover that for you. He does take both totally fine, and I started as soon as I got home from the hospital. Someone said, what do you eat and how much do you eat in a day to produce this much milk for your stash? A lot of carbs. I've already touched on that one too. Tips on breastfeeding and pumping. How do you know when to stop pumping or feeding? So as far as breastfeeding goes, I wait for him to either come off of the breast, or if I notice that he's asleep and he's just like suckling just to be suckling, I'll pop him off. But one way to tell is if their hands are in a fist, then they're still hungry, and if they go limp, then they are pretty satisfied. I usually know that Emmett will feed anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes sometimes. A lot of times it's around the like 12 to 15 minute mark. So if we're well past like 20 minutes, then I know he's just sucking to comfort suck, basically. And then as far as pumping, like I said, I use the Haaka, so I just stop whenever he's done eating, or a lot of times this will fill up completely and I'll just have to take it off and be done with it. Sometimes I do bring like a bottle to dump it and then to keep going if I know that I'm super engorged, but a lot of times I just stop when it's full or when he stops eating. What do you do about cracked nipples, and when do you start switching between breastfeeding and using the Milky pump? So the cracked nipples, I use the Motherlove nipple cream. I never had cracked nipples, but that's the nipple cream I use, and I think that that would probably help. And then I haven't used any of the milk I pumped. I'm saving that for when he goes over to the sitter's house. My little girl is due in over 2 weeks. Any help is great. One question I have is, when do you feed with a bottle and what you've pumped versus nursing? Thanks. I love your channel. Thank you so much. I've already answered this one too. So I always breastfeed him, and if I'm going to use something that I've collected from the Haaka, then I keep that out. I only use that if I'm not going to be home to feed him, but we're probably going to start using more bottles just to get him used to it, like I said, for the babysitters. Does your baby ever stay hungry after feeding? And if so, how do you manage so many feedings? He doesn't really ever stay hungry after he eats. He eats and then he's pretty satisfied for about 2 to 3 hours most of the time, unless he's going through a leap, cluster feeding, or if he's not feeling well, then he'll want to feed more. But it's not because he's hungry, it's just because he wants to comfort nurse. How long after feedings do you pump, and how many times a day? Are you pumping at night also, or just in the daytime? So I just do it when I feed him. This is going to be really repetitive, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to answer all these questions. I have started doing a night pump with the Haakas though, without feeding him. I just put both of them on, and that's because he's sleeping longer. And someone said, I'm amazed at how much milk I was missing out on before the Haaka. I saw your Instagram post and ordered one immediately because I knew I was leaking on one side while nursing and pumping on the other. My little man is 3 weeks old, so I used it tonight and got 1.5 ounces while feeding him. Thanks for the suggestions. You're so welcome. That is one thing I forgot to mention. So the Haaka collects letdown. So when the baby latches onto one breast and starts feeding, your other breast will start to produce letdown and start leaking, and this just creates a suction and allows for that milk to flow freely. So that's how it collects. If you are just going to use the Haaka to pump, then you might have to like squeeze it a few times to stimulate letdown, and then it'll start flowing and you'll collect. So I did forget to mention that. Someone said, do you find it awkward to feed in front of your husband? No, I do not find it awkward, and your breasts do not look beautiful when they're suctioned into the Haaka either. So you have to be really comfortable, which it's your husband, so you should be, but I don't find it awkward at all. What's your routine for pumping and nursing? If you pump before nursing, the baby doesn't get the amount he's supposed to, and if I pump after nursing and not pumping, I'm not pumping much. Right now I wake up at night to pump because that's when he's not nursing. So I just use the Haaka. That's one plus side of doing it since I came home, is my body has been tricked into thinking I'm feeding 2 babies whenever he's nursing on one side and the Haaka's on the other. So I always have a really good supply for him. As far as if you're already breastfeeding, I think you would have to work really hard to build up your supply, and the Haaka can definitely do that. If anything, you can always just use the Haaka on the other breast and then give the baby a bottle with what you've pumped, if that's an option for you. But as far as my supply goes, I've kind of had it built up since the beginning, so I don't really have to worry about not having enough or him still being hungry after one breast. I've never alternated and gave him both. He would overeat way too much. So someone said, I didn't nurse with my first and really want to try when Oliver comes. Any tips at all will be appreciated. I'm so nervous. Jessica, you'll do fine. I hope that this video has been helpful for you, and that you are able to take some of this and use it. Definitely buy a Haaka and start as soon as you have him and you get home. Start with a Haaka. That will help your supply a lot. And then the last one is, first off, I want to say your son is so cute. Thank you so much. Your son is a day older than my daughter, and it's amazing. I saw your nighttime routine on my recommendations. I enjoyed your video, and now I'm subscribed. You're doing such a great job for being a first-time mommy. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. I'm breastfeeding as well and just started to pump. My question is, what other pump do you use, and how many times a day do you try to pump? How do you keep up your milk supply? How many ounces do you make in a day? Do you have a goal of how much you want to try and make in a day? Can't wait for your video. I think I covered all of your questions, honestly, throughout this video. And if I didn't, then comment down and below and I will answer it. But from what I'm seeing, I think I have answered them all. I don't really have a goal for the day. I just kind of go with the flow. I think once we get closer to Emmett going to the sitters, I'll get more consistent with using the Haaka and drinking water and really trying to keep that supply up. When I go back to work, I'm honestly planning on just using my Haakas. I don't even think I'm gonna use my electric pump because I think that it will be so much faster to use the Haakas. So yeah, that is all of your questions. I hope that I gave you guys some good advice. If you have anything that I didn't cover, then comment down below and I will try and answer that for you guys. I'm not an expert by any means. This is just what works for me and my little boy and our family. And I hope that you can take something away from this video. Like I said, if you guys want to know what my breastfeeding must-haves are, then comment down below and like this video, because there are a bunch of products that I didn't mention here that I love and I use, and I can definitely make that video for you guys. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys my stash. Okay, so here is my stash. I started with this bin. And like I said, I started with about 3 ounces, and now I do about 5. And then I have this bin, and then all of these. So I have about 80 to 85 bags of milk. Okay, that's gonna do it for this video. Make sure you guys give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. You can also follow me on Instagram to stay up to date with this little cutie. And I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching.